Okay, we're going to continue our discussion on incomplete pedigree, incomplete dominance, and how to do a pedigree chart and interpret it and make one. You've already watched part 1. This is part 2. So I'm going to take you back for a minute. We were talking about Mendel. If a capital B stands for brown eyes and a little b stands for blue eyes, then we know anybody who has the alleles, one from dad, one from mom. We have another one from dad, one from mom, and then we have another possibility, one from dad and one from mom. And if you remember, we call these genotypes, right? A genotype is an allele, and you have to have a pair of them. Again, one from mom, one from dad. So this person would be brown-eyed. This person would have blue eyes. This person, however, is special. They're unique. They also have brown eyes, but because of this right here, this recessive trait that's being hidden, even though they have brown eyes, they would be considered a carrier for blue. Well, what does that mean? That means that even though we can't see anything about blue eyes because they have brown, that means they have the option or the possibility, the chance to pass on blue eyes to their offspring. So there was this question, the one we viewed on part 1 at the end of the video, that talked about the sex-linked trait of colorblindness. So we know the alleles for a girl looks like this, and the alleles for a boy looks like this. And according to historians for hundreds of years, including Henry VIII, who beheaded a few different of his wives, because why? Because they didn't give him a boy to carry on his kingdom. And it was long believed that it was the female, the girl, who determined if they were going to have a boy or girl. But as you can clearly see, if these are the only two alleles through meiosis that the mom can pass on, she's not able to pass on a Y. Because in our key, X means girl, Y means boy. Okay, so mom doesn't possess a Y to give, but who does? The dad. So that's a quick lesson on X and Y and who has what. So now that you know that, something you need to know about karyotypes, which is in section 2. So if this is my gene in a karyotype for X chromosome, okay? For a Y chromosome, this is my gene. You can see the difference in size. This is much smaller. The only thing, and this isn't 100% true, but for the purpose of this chapter, the only thing a Y codes for is boy. That's it. So X-linked traits, aka sex-linked traits, can only be given on the X chromosome, not the Y. Because the only thing a Y is good for is to determine the sex of that child. So I'll give you an example. If I have a mom who is normal, and I'm going to say B equals normal, and little b equals colorblind. Okay? So if I have a mom that's normal, but she's a carrier, and I'm going to cross her with a dad who is colorblind. Notice that there's nothing written on the Y, and there can't be, because the only thing a Y is good for is to show that I'm a boy. That's it. Okay? So if I were to plug this into a Punnett square, and I'm going to have the X and Y present, I know it's a lot of letters, but it will help you. Here's an egg, a sperm for dad. Okay, sperm for dad, another sperm for dad. So through meiosis, this is a possibility of what he might give, and this is a possibility. So you can see for dad, he has the potential of this is coding for a girl, and this is coding for a boy. Notice that the boy can't code for color blindness because it only codes for the sex of that child. And in this case, it's a boy. And then over here, we'll have the mom. And this is one egg. And this is one egg. So now let's bring them down just like normal. X little b, X little d, Y, Y. So you can already see they have a 50-50 shot at having a boy and a girl. So now let's bring this over. And bring this over. Bring this over. And bring this over. So out of our cross, we have one that looks like this. Let's talk about our boys just for a second. Here's our boys. This one is normal, and this one is colorblind. And out of our girls, this one is normal, but she's a carrier, meaning she can pass it on to her kids. And this one is colorblind. So girls being colorblind is extremely rare. And it can happen. Don't let people tell you it can't. It can. But as you can see, there was only a 25% chance that they would have a female. Out of all 4 siblings, there's only a 25% chance that they would have a child or a girl who is colorblind. Now, if they would have asked that a different way, of the female siblings, what is the chance that one of the girls will be colorblind? Well, if they asked it that way, now we're looking at 50% because they're asking us about the girls. Well, there's 2 of them. So 2 divided by 1 is 1. That's 50, right? So that's how we do it. Let's do another cross. So in this cross, I have a dad who again is colorblind, but this time mom is normal, just like before, but she's not a carrier. So here out of this cross, all of the children, 100%, are normal vision, including our boys. So even though dad was colorblind, the boys came out on the right side of things. So if you have a boy who's colorblind, that's because his dad is colorblind, and his mom, if she's normal, she has to be a carrier in order for the boy to be colorblind. Because remember, boys don't get colorblind from dad. They get colorblind from mom. So she had to have been a carrier. So here we have 100% of the girls are normal, but they are also carriers. Now, the boys, can they give it to their children? Nope, they sure can't. So color blindness comes from the mom if you're a boy. So it says here, carriers are not shown on this pedigree, so we're not going to see any half circles or half squares. However, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Remember the problem we did on the previous video. And it also tells us that sickle cell anemia is a recessive disorder. So the first thing I'm going to do is build a key. So normal is big B, and we have clear circles and squares, and anemia is 2 smalls with shaded circle and a shaded square for a pedigree. Now, for my own curiosity, I'm going to plug these into a Punnett square. I have dad as affected and mom as normal. However, I put a question mark. Is she truly normal or is she a carrier? So I wrote her as being normal, and as you can see, 100% their children came out unaffected. But if we look at the second generation or their children, let's go back for a second. So I had that question, was mom completely normal or was she a carrier? So I did a second Punnett square showing mom as a carrier, and look what happened. She had one son who came out normal, another son who was affected. She has a daughter who was affected, and another daughter who appears normal but is a carrier. So I went and I've highlighted their offspring 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. And as you can see, 2 and 3 and 7 are affected. They have anemia, whereas 4, 6, and 8 do not have sickle cell anemia. So that tells me, while I know that Dad looks like this, I'm just going to write it in regular allele form, Mom is absolutely a carrier. She's not 100% normal, because otherwise, and I use my Punnett squares to prove me correct, otherwise all of their kids 100% would be normal. So here are the answers to 15. Which members of the family above are afflicted with sickle cell anemia? We know that from the first generation, let me come down here so you can see. We know that the first generation, person number 1 is affected. From the second generation, persons 2, 3, and 7 are affected. And from the third generation, we know that person 3 is affected. It wants to know how this lady here is related to this gentleman. And as you can see, if we have a bracket coming down and creating a new bracket, that means Dad and Mom had kids. So this is a sister and a brother, so they are siblings. How are individuals, this person and this person, related? We know if there's not a bracket, but there's just a horizontal line connecting two, we know that that means they are a husband and a wife. Looking at the second generation, person number 7, and at the third generation, person number 2. So you kind of have to back up a little bit here. This girl here, who are her parents? So we're going to come up and we're going to look. Well, this lady here and this lady here are related, and they're sisters. We know they're siblings, right? So if they're sisters and this one has a baby, this is her aunt. So this is the aunt, this is the niece. So it's an aunt and a niece. How is this person and this person related? So it wants to know this lady and this boy, how are they related? Well, let's take a look. This lady had this son, and this son was with this person, and they had this son. So these are, so if we name him John, because if I don't give him names, it confuses me. John is the son of Joe, and Joe is the son of Mary, right? So that would make John Mary's grandson. So it's a grandmother and a grandson. How many children did individuals 1 and 2 have? Well, let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. How many girls did they have? 2. And how many have sickle cell anemia? That answer was wrong. They had 2 girls who had sickle cell anemia. So label the possible genotypes for all individuals in the pedigree. If you see a question like this, you need to remember one person can have more than one possible genotype. Remember this one here, we knew that Mary was definitely this, but we weren't sure if she was a carrier or not. Thankfully, there was enough information that we were able to go back and say, for sure, Mary was a carrier, no doubt. We know exactly what her genotype was. Okay, but you don't have time, and I'm not going to require you to do that for this exercise. So, yeah, there you go. If we don't know, we write both of them and we put a question mark.